Oh my gosh. Hello.
Hi.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming and chatting with me today. I'm so excited because I wanted to do, like I was saying to you, like a Sex.Prayers podcast episode that's by women, for the single ladies, the ladies that are out in relationship, and really specifically on like the journey into sensuality and sexuality, because I feel like that's a topic that's on so many women's minds, hearts, and yonis, I'm sure. And so, like to explore that a little bit.
Yeah.
And yeah, I would love for you to introduce yourself, who you are, where you're from, what you're about, just to give the audience some insight into you.
Amazing. I'm Alida. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited. I'm a somatic intimacy coach. I was born and raised in Peru in a very oppressive, judgmental society. I left as soon as I could. That's how it felt. A deep desire to leave because I felt like that was not my place, which heavily influenced how I got into this world and this work. Very much so.
I resonate so much, yeah.
And then I went to New York by myself at 18, and then my whole world exploded, and many different realities presented themselves to me, and then from there kind of like building and then breaking down everything until now. I got into self-development about 2017, and one thing led to the other where I got into this specific pocket of work. And I'm here for it. I mean, it's going to stay. It's stuck with me.
Yeah.
Yes.
It seems like you like really thrive in that energy and in that environment. Like I really see you as the embodiment of that space.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I resonate so much with what you're saying. Like I grew up in northern Idaho, eastern Washington, so very also like oppressive, very reserved, very conservative energy, you know. And I felt growing up, I was like, I'm just not like the people here.
Same.
My spirit was too wild. And so yeah, as soon as I graduated high school, I was like, I'm out. I moved to Portland, Oregon, which was like a little big city, but it had more culture and it had more aliveness. I was like, okay, this feels like a better place to explore myself in general.
Yeah, exactly. It was the same. It was this innate feeling of, I don't agree with these people and the way that it's run. And when, PE class, nightmare. My grandma was my biggest bully. My mother has like this deep innate fear of weight. So it wasn't even from a religious point of view, it was from a body image. You have to look the same, act the same, think the same. I felt a lot of the way that people related and communicated with each other was through complaining and gossiping and negativity. And there was just like so many things that was like, this doesn't make sense to me. And I knew from very young age, not just like the overt of like, your grandma feeding you and then calling you fat, which happened to me, but just from a lot of like even the sensitivities of how people related to each other, how people were not expressed, how people, you could just feel this fear of everybody just being themselves. And I kind of think my childhood wisdom to be so clear that this is not my place and that I could leave, and gave myself the chance to change the story, to change these meanings and the relationship with my body. And that's kind of like, it was the crux that started everything for me. It's realizing in one of my first trainings 7 years ago, my first breakthrough was like, I've been playing against my body my whole time, and then my whole life. Realizing that my head had been running the show the entire time, that my body was over there and my heart was in a cage locked up 3 cities away. It was this complete disconnect of me, and it was 100% my head, very much masculine. I also had, I came to the States with like a platinum credit card from my parents. Economic crash happened in 2008. They lost their company, and I was like alone in Manhattan with no money, with like, okay, you can come back to Peru or you can stay there and figure it out. I was like, there's no way I'm going back.
Yeah.
So I spent all my 20s in this massive hustle, really survival, figure out how to stay in the States as an immigrant, like this whole story, that with piled on insecurities about my body, my 20s were kind of like a blur, completely disassociated from my body, from my needs, from my sensuality, from my femininity, from any emotion and softness. So it wasn't until I started this work that I realized, oh my God, I'm so fragmented.
Right, yeah, of course.
And I've been blaming my body my whole life for disconnection, for not being seen, for not feeling belonging. I associated so much of my worth with the rule that I made in my head when I was 12, when I was 15, that I'm not a person that people desire. I even had somebody, this is like, when I was a teenager, my cousin, as a boy, went to the all boys school and he had all the handsome friends. And one of his handsome friends that was super, like, the hottie, he looked at me and straight up in my face said, if you were thinner, we'd totally date you.
Oh,
like that.
so crushing.
It was just so overtly open that who I was and what I looked was wrong and unwanted. So then I spent all my 20s giving my body away because I came to the States and people found me attractive. I'm like, yeah, take it. Oh my God.
Yeah.
You know, like getting that self-esteem that I was like denied so much when I was younger. So I made this very deep connection that my body was wrong, and then that my body was kind of like the token for self-esteem hits.
Right, yeah.
Completely apart from me, apart from who I was. So the process for me was really, okay, let's bring it together and see what happens. I've been blaming my body the whole time. I've been not taking care of it. It's always been a negative. I need to punish you. I need to treat you better. You need to change so that I can be happy. I don't have fulfilling relationships because you're fat. You know, it was this like horse and the rider is the exercise, you know, like very much blaming my body for all the things that I wasn't taking accountability for, you know, at the end of the day. And all
Which
these
is
stories.
also hard to come to that realization.
Exactly,
it's
exactly.
Just like, wait, what?
And all these stories. And that's kind of like how this whole process started for me. That was like my first big breakthrough. Like, what could happen if me and my body are on the same team? That's what sparked the whole thing.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's so powerful. And I connect with that in a lot of ways where, so much of my like childhood was, you know, for like 16 years, I was just like abused, like in my own home. And so it was like men weren't safe and women weren't safe and my voice wasn't safe. And it was this fear of like, even if I told people, nobody was going to believe me, you know, like I was the oddball out. And so I just like kept that until I was like 33 years old. I finally told my family what had happened. And so it was like coming out of that, my whole 20s is like, I didn't even recognize that I was disassociated. I knew that I was numb and I just thought that's how I was. I was like, orgasms are never going to be accessible to me. I'm never really going to be able to experience pleasure during sex. And I came into this sexual space feeling like, I like rough, hard sex, you know, like I just need to be like pounded into this and like that's what I would find enjoyment. And it wasn't until like later trauma work that I was like, oh, that's actually all I could feel. That was the only way I could feel sensation when I would have sex. Yeah. Because I would just, it was like I could feel penetration and then my body would just go numb. Yeah. And it was just like not feeling safe in general and not having that dialogue with my body around like, what do you need? Oh, okay, we're actually not here. Because in my childhood, it was like something would happen and then I would disassociate and it would take like 3-4 days to kind of come back to my body. And then right as I would start to like feel safe again, it would just occur. And so it was like so much of me was just like lost in that space. Yeah. And again, feeling like my body wasn't a safe space, but from the place of you're going to be preyed upon, you're going to be taken advantage of, you know? So I went through this phase of like, I don't want to be attractive. Not that I necessarily considered myself so, but I was like, if I'm ugly, if I don't wear makeup, if I wear oversized clothes, then nobody will notice me and then I'm not at risk, you know, of any of that behavior. And so I went through a whole phase of that and went through a whole like gothic phase where I was like, maybe if I'm scary, nobody will be, you know, attracted to me. And so in my 20s, I had a similar kind of situation where it was like, I felt I really wanted my power back around my sexuality. And I was just using it in hindsight. I was using it in the wrong way. That's like, that wasn't really giving me power. I thought that it was. because I was like, oh, now I'm here and I can claim it, and I'm not in this toxic environment anymore. And then recognizing, like, you know, I had my fast and loose years, and I was like, it made me feel something about myself. I was like, oh, I'm worthy of attention, and I'm worthy of love and connection, even though they were not with ideal people. For the most part, I had some really great relationships, but when I wasn't, and I was kind of lost in that, like, who am I when it comes to my sexuality? Yeah. I was totally just misguided, misplaced. Yeah. And I think part of that comes from just like such a lack of education around our sexuality. Like, I grew up in porn culture. I feel like probably you as well.
More or less. I mean, it was very sneaky, but luckily I was able to kind of like leave home at 18, and then I was along with the internet, so I got to discover it on my own. But yeah, I find it really interesting that we came to kind of like the same place from like a very different angle. Yeah. You did not want to be sexualized so much. I wanted to be desired so badly. I wanted to be seen as a sexual object so badly. Yeah. And you wanted to do the opposite, but then we end up having these fast and loose eras, like you said, just to prove something to ourselves. And I think like that's one of the biggest things about sex is we using as a bargaining chip for something, to make something true about ourselves. We hook so many things. You know, I hear a lot of the men that I work with to release stress, for example. One of like the go-to sections, the go-to hooks that they put, you know? Yeah. I just need to feel pretty. I'm expected to do it. Yeah. Well, how else am I gonna... Oh, well, I was already there. Oh, he bought me dinner. You know, like
what all if I kind of want it secretly? Like, maybe I do want it.
Exactly. Yeah. And we never just stop and say, what does sex mean to me? What am I making it mean? Why do I even want to do this? Am I doing it because I want to, because I need to, because I should, because of blah, blah, blah? Which is another reason why I came to this work. We put so many hooks to it. Yeah. Something that is so complex and so rich, and like, you know, we come from sex and we die, and those are the two topics we don't talk about, and it's hilarious. And like, we build this whole society on monogamous partnerships who are expected to have sex. Nobody tells us how to do it. Yeah. Just like, that's like one of the things that make this work for me so exciting. It's so rich, and it's so like, duh.
Right. They're the missing pieces, I feel like, because if a lot of the energy of like coming back to wholeness, you know, I feel like even in sacred union, that's a part of the conversation. Like shadow elements of it. It's like, oh, I need you to feel complete. And I've been really reflecting on this just in general, where it's like, where do I feel incomplete within my own wholeness? That's a me piece. And of course that my relationships will reflect that. But being able to examine like, well, where is that? It's like, oh, like for me in my experience, it was like, oh, I'm like numb sexually. Like, what's that about? And I was terrified to go on that journey, because I was like, I don't know how deep this pain goes. I don't feel like I want to keep reliving all this stuff, you know. So I feel grateful for the trauma trainings and stuff that I invested in, because it gave me that space, and it gave me a vocabulary for what I was experiencing that was like, okay, it's not just me. This is like something that actually happens, and it's common, and all the disassociation, all of that I just was like a safety mechanism made so much more sense. And coming back to the body for me was like such a cathartic experience of like so much crying, so much of that like, oh my God, I've been betraying you. I can't believe I did that to you. Oh my God, what do you need? I'm so sorry. You know, ho'oponopono, all the things. Yeah. Oh my gosh. And then just kind of having like, coming back to that energy of compassion that's like, I didn't have any tools when I was a kid. I was never taught about boundaries. I was never taught about how to vocalize myself. Now we're in this space that's like somatics, resourcing. There's like tools are everywhere, you know.
Not even not giving the tools, but punished for talking about it.
Right, yeah.
It's not even a neutral space. It's like, don't talk about that. How dare you talk about like, it's rude, it's like skanky, it's like...
how dare you be curious?
Exactly. How dare you talk about that with your family and your friends? You know? Yeah. It's, for me, you talking talking about the body is, for me, was the fundamental of it. I've tried psychology and normal therapy, talk therapy, and it didn't do it for me. And that's another reason why I do this work, is to expose people to all the modalities that are available, particularly when it comes to the body, because I would say for most of the people, okay, I want to change something. I know that something's going on, therapy, right? And talk therapy is very useful, of course. But for me, it wasn't until I got into my body, into somatics, into energy work, into people actually touching my body, into sexological body work, into all these experiences, that the body started talking. And it was way smarter than my brain. In a way, I was too smart for talk therapy.
Yeah.
I could talk myself into anything. I could make anybody believe anything that I want.
Yeah.
You know, including myself. And that's kind of how I carried them. And it wasn't until I got into the body that I was able to like kind of break through that and actually see what was going on, which is why I'm like such a proponent about somatics and movement and like the work that we both do. I say this every time I lead a workshop to kind of bring my own experiences and share from my own story. I say I do this work for the 2-year-old that got hit by her caretaker, the 12-year-old that didn't get asked to dance in boy-girl dances, the 24-year-old that gave her body away for the self-esteem, and the 33-year-old that got cheated on and didn't see it coming. You know, I do this work to pour love into these moments, into these lives, into these frozen moments in me that felt not good enough, unloved, not worthy. And all these women, all these parts, all these moments that I carry with me through my whole life that not just show up in how I do relationships, but in my work, with my friendships, and how I move down the street. How I move down the street is this 12-year-old saying, like, nobody's going to go ask you to dance.
Yeah.
You know, and we carry these things, and those are logged in the physical body. I can understand, oh, somebody didn't find me attractive. Okay, so then now I feel like I'm not good enough. So then I have to like do da-da-da-da-da-da to earn love. I could understand it. But until I got into the body, these things didn't really feel mine, didn't feel true, didn't feel the permission to kind of like release and feel that sorrow, feel that being left behind, feel that you're not like the rest. It's not okay. This otherness that I carried all this time. It wasn't until I got into somatics that I was able to kind of like sit with them, be with them, tell me we're not that person anymore, and I'm now the adult is here. And that's kind of like the language that I use a lot in my work is like have the adults left the building.
Right, yeah. I love when you said that.
Yeah. It's my child here running its story. Am I 12 right now, or am I 36 that understands that story is no longer true and I no longer need it to see the world through that fear?
Yeah.
So somatics for me, coming into my body was the most important part of the process. Understanding it was one thing, and that's another thing why I got specifically into sexuality and kink, because I found them, yes, the topic of sex is very fun and taboo, and we hook it, and like intellectually super interesting. But physically, I find it to be an incredibly effective microcosm of being able to work through things. You know, you can talk to your therapist for 8 years about your bitch boss, or you can get tied up for 3 hours and get the same results.
Yeah.
Which I love. The circle of changing action, seeing feedback, and implementing within the sexual environment is so potent, right? So it's not even about sex. It's like, this is incredibly effective, efficient tool to create change in the body. I release a bit more, you get more turned on. I feel more desired. I release a bit more, you get more turned on. And you can bring that to everything in your life. Yeah. So the temples and the spaces that I hold are exactly that. It's like, let's bring the world into this one specific place. Let's make this, you know, the way that you do one thing is the way that you do everything. And that's how I see this work, is when you come to my temples and my events, if you're coming in already feeling like you're not good enough, and you're already taking yourself out of the game even before it started.
Yeah, totally.
Right? Mm-hmm. I'm not hot enough. Okay, I'm not even going to try to flirt or be cute.
Yeah.
Or you come in and you're already clocking in everybody who's attractive, who's not, who I want to hook up with, making assumptions right away.
Yeah.
Or it's your turn to request something and you have no idea what you want. You've never asked yourself, hey, what feels good to me? Then you have to say it to somebody. I have to say what I want. Do I have to be specific? And when
will they reject me? It's a whole process.
When there's feedback, no, it's okay. No, it's fine. When you don't really like it, and those things apply to everything. I can do 2 hours, 3 hours workshop, but what this is really about is how you're moving in the rest of the world. So again, yes, I'm using the format of sensuality and sexuality, but this is really about how you carry yourself and you relate as a whole in the world.
I really agree with what you're saying, because talk therapy, I feel like, really serves its purpose, and they're there, and there's only so far that I feel like talk therapy can really take you, because at some point it does need to become experiential. You need to be in the sensation of like, do I like this? Don't I like, ooh, this is like making me feel uncomfortable. Where? Oh, here, and just like developing that connection to even our energetic yeses and our nos. And that's what I love about temple spaces, and like even the sensual erotic area. Like if I take sex off the table and there's no expectation of it going there, I still meet so much of myself in those spaces, because it's like, why I want to say no to you, but why do I feel like I need to say yes? And why do I feel like regardless of what I say, you're going to have an experience and I'm going to be responsible for that? And I noticed so much, even like in ISTA was a great example of that. It's like you're having this constant dialogue with, at least in mine, was like absolute strangers, like 45 people were there, just strangers. And I'm like, oh man, when we did our BDSMs and we're practicing, I noticed that I'm having our BDSMs with different guys, and I'm like, I should say this thing, and I'm like, I feel so uncomfortable telling this person the truth.
That was the hardest part of the entire training, our BDSM conversations for me, of the entire week. Terrified.
I was like, oh, my people pleaser was so activated, and even that part of me that used to even fawn would kind of come up. That's like, it's safer to just go with this than it is to potentially risk like the consequences. And I was seeing consequences as like so deep, so triggering, when even the consequence could have just been like them being fully receptive and responsive and me actually being safe. I remember being like, oh man, this person wants to connect, and I really don't want to connect. And I would notice how I would kind of like start to change my posture and try to, make myself more comfortable, when inside I was just like, I don't even know what to say here. I don't know what to do here. I don't want to hurt your feelings. Why am I responsible for that? So it's like, it's like there's this whole thing going on inside, even mentally, like my mind was like spinning out. And then to be in a space too that my body's like, now I'm getting hot, and I'm like, oh man, I'm like, I could feel I would start to fidget. I'm like, girl, just sit still and just like hold your posture, and try to get through it. And it was so enlightening. I mean, those trainings in general are incredibly enlightening. Like the horse and rider, I was like, I didn't realize, even for all the work that I had done somatically, I was like, wow, I'm still actively at war with myself. And it's just a different environment that's bringing that out of me. And I love doing horse and rider like with my clients, because it's so exposing.
Same.
It's so exposing, and I'm like, I'm sorry, you're probably gonna cry in this experience. It's probably gonna feel, intense, and also there's so much valuable information when we come to the body.
Exactly, and it takes so little for that kind of like dam to break and the waters to flow, which is also something so beautiful about this realm. The moment that you just start becoming aware of the body, it's immediate. The effect is so immediate. The signals start coming so immediately. So one of the things that I like to work on a lot is mapping of emotions. So when you're angry, you put yourself in a situation, you can talk it out loud, you can do a visualization, however it works, and then you notice what is happening in my body. Oh, my hand gets in a fist, my chest opens up. Okay, right? We can talk about the fight, response, fight, flee, fawn. You can have it conceptually, but if you don't map it in your body, you're wasting all that energy, all those signals. Like when you can use your body to help you navigate what is going on, to really check in with what is actually going on. What do you actually want? Somebody asked a question, and my hand's in a fist. I know immediately that it's a hell no, right? And we're not trusting the body's signals to let us know what is going on. It's also exhausting to think with your head all the time and be an overanalyzer and just relying on your head to make decisions. The moment that you let the body at the table, right, of making decisions, everything becomes so much easier. So the exercises can be so simple as like, okay, you ask me a question and all I do is say no back to you. Do I feel like I want to say no, but, or do I say in a low voice, or do I say no, right? Something so simple can tell me how uncomfortable I am with stating my boundaries and things like, it takes so little. Or just like in Horse and Rider, asking the head, asking the body, what do you need? How are you? And then the body talking back. It's so insightful. You don't need this huge place. It's very dramatic, huge experience. It could be really, really simple to start tapping into this work. And that's, I think, so beautiful for people to realize. It's also such a big, scary topic when people hear about it. How do I even start? What do I do?
Yeah.
Literally ask a friend to ask you questions and you say no back and start there.
Yeah.
Or tell yourself a story, go back to a memory that makes you scared. Scan down the body, what is happening? Okay, and then start using those body cues in your day-to-day life to realize, okay, the adults have left the building. I'm talking from this 8-year-old that got their bowl stolen and does not trust anybody anymore.
Yeah.
How can I appease this part of me and then come back to acting from being an adult? It could be, it's so accessible.
It makes me think of when I used to walk around my neighborhood. I was in a really nice neighborhood in Portland, and this was before I could make eye contact with people. Like anytime somebody would cross, I was just like down, you know? And it was because I always had that fear still that was like, if I make eye contact, they're going to see that as an invitation. They're going to prey upon me anyways, whatever the story was. And I put myself on like a 30-day challenge, and I recommended this to some people before because I'm like, okay, for 30 days, every time I see somebody, I'm going to make eye contact, even if it's just for a second, and I'm going to like say hi, or I'm going to smile or something, you know, because I was really trying to retrain myself. Like, this person's not trying to kill you. They're just walking their dog, you know? And it was like, I was maybe 25 years old, and it reminds me of what you're saying. That's like, when I would be on the street and somebody would come up to me, that inner child would get activated. That's like, shrink. Oh, I wish I had a hoodie. You know, like all of that kind of like body posture energy that was just like, no, let's look down. If you don't notice them, they don't notice you. And so to actually have to like, okay, no, I'm going to actively like open up my body. I'm going to make eye contact, and I'm going to like bridge that gap for myself. It really was so supportive. It changed things for me. So then I saw like, no, they're definitely not trying to attack me. They are just walking their dog, and they're actually really friendly. Yeah. And we have something in common. And it was a part of that process of like, checking in to see, has my adult left the room? Like what's actually getting activated in this moment? Yeah. And I'm sure for so many women, you know, it's so easy to reflect down the timelines, all the times that we've been betrayed by other people, or all the times that our boundaries have been crossed, all the times that we wish we would have spoken up and we didn't, and why. And I think coming back to it's like the posture, noticing your fist, noticing when you're cowering, noticing when you want to shrink and kind of shrivel and get small, and seeing like how, as the more embodied people we are now, or at least the people who are on the journey to exploring that, can start to soften into that and do some of that like inner parenting work, and really become like our own best advocate and our own best friend. That's like, girl, I know that hurt you, and like I'm here for you now. Yeah. And maybe nobody was in the past, but like I am.
Exactly. Now. Parts work is so powerful. Like, there are moments in my life where I literally like do this. And this means I am putting my 4-year-old in my arm and walking with her. So I will literally do this. Like I can feel being triggered by A, B, or C, and I can feel some part of my childhood just start to like get activated, get scared, get angry, whatever it is, and I will literally just do this and start walking like this. I'm like, no, I got you. Like, I am the adult now. It's beautiful work. It gets me emotional every time because it could really be that simple. And I think this work and being on the path and the journey could be so big. To me, the way that I like to distill it down first of all, I need to be willing to be wrong about my stories.
Yeah, that's so important.
Be humble enough to think that maybe the way that I've been seeing the world and the assumptions that I've been making, the glasses through which I've been seeing the world, maybe it's wrong. And it's hard because our brains are made to build efficiency. So they want to be as efficient as possible. They want to identify patterns to keep us safe. Awesome. Thank you, brain. You're amazing.
Yeah.
So then we just start living our entire lives through these assumptions of the stories that we created when we were 2 to 14, right? What if I'm wrong? What if what I've been thinking for 30 years is not right? That's the first step. I need to be willing to be wrong. And then it's, okay, let me identify my parts, right? My 2-year-old, 12-year-old, 24, 33-year-old. Let me identify these patterns, these truths, these pillars of my identity that my brain has so brilliantly constructed to keep me alive and create, space for other things. Can I be willing to tear them down? And that's, to me, the scary part of this whole process. That's when you do your shadow work and when you build dark night of the soul and all these terms that we love using. To me, it's that. Let me look at my stories, and can I tear them down? Can I be wrong about the way that I thought the world was? And can I rebuild from my adult self new stories, new tools, new rhythms for myself? Once you do that, then you're going to day, a story comes up, you see it, and then you choose differently. So awareness and choice, self-development for me is not one amazing ayahuasca trip, it's day-to-day muscle memory. My story when I was 12 is coming up. Can I act differently? Can I choose to believe that this is wrong? Okay. Next day, it shows up again. Thank you. Wow. Yeah. You're persistent. Okay. Choose differently comes again. And then it becomes easier the same way that, doing abs workouts does, or lunges. To me, self-development is that. It's like, can I see my story and can I pick differently? Can I see it come up? And can I see it come up? Can I be compassionate still? Can I be a warrior of love for myself over and over again until it becomes true and easier? And then to me, I wouldn't be doing this work if it didn't work so well. If I didn't believe in this work so much. I have a day job in tech. I don't need to be doing this. I never wanted to be a coach. And I hold these spaces because my life's biggest accomplishment is how my inner dialogue has changed.
I love that.
And I was the biggest bully in the world to me. I'm really brilliant at being mean. And I used it all against me, and I felt incredibly misunderstood and angry and so distant and so judgmental of everything that I did. Not just looking fat, everything that I did. If I could change my inner dialogue, anybody can change their inner dialogue. Yeah. And it's just about these tools, these moments of awareness and this practice, this willingness to be wrong. Okay, maybe that's not true. Maybe I am desirable. Maybe I can be loved by somebody. And then having this faith to be like, okay, I'm going to choose as if this was right. I'm going to choose as if I am lovable. I'm going to act and show up as if I am worthy of the love. And then seeing what happens. And it works.
Yeah, it does.
That's why I'm here.
It's so special, and it's like, I love what you're saying because it can be so simple. And of course, there's these experiences that are like the dark night of the soul experiences where it just feels like we are getting ripped apart.
Yes.
And we don't know who we are, we don't know what's up, what's down, we're inside out. And there's this energy of like trying to grapple onto even some of the stories that we know don't serve us in an effort because that feels safer than the other potential. Because I recognize for a lot of people, pleasure also doesn't feel safe, And so, like, not every experience, I feel like what you're saying is necessarily have to be a dark night of the soul, nor do we have to wait for that experience to just, like, break us apart. It really is in those, like, everyday micro moments and movements that's like, oh, I'm not feeling okay. We don't have to know what the not okayness is, but even just being attuned and aware to, like, this isn't creating a good feeling inside of me. What's that about? And choosing to sit and journal on that, or like mirror work was epic for me. It's like looking at myself in the mirror and going like, okay, I accept you, and I'm gonna work my ass off to love you as a person, and I'm gonna really try to see your beauty, and I'm going to try to see your beauty is safe.
Yeah.
Or even just like sitting in front of the mirror when I would have a tough time and go, okay, like talking to my higher self. It's like, okay, girl, what's going on? And I would just share, and then my reflection would just speak back at me. And it was just such deep healing work from like the oracle, you know, if you would call it that. And yeah, like what you're saying, like just the awareness, the desire for connection, like the desire to want different, you know, and be like, this isn't my life. I don't want to feel like this forever. I don't want to be surrounded by this energy of complaining or gossip or all that forever. Yeah. And so what do I need to do? What does that conversation need to sound like? Yeah. So
and not everyone has to do it. It's another thing that I'm like a big proponent of. If you want to live with your stories, I mean, it is a totally fine place to be in. You know, if you want to live in your safety, our stories, these pillars, create safety in us. If that's how you want to live. And also, I think that's the role of why, you know, religion is so widespread. It gives you a manual to tell you that you did good in this lifetime. Which at the end is probably what we all want, right? Like the moment where your life is ending, like, did I do it right? Do I feel good about this incarnation, this experience that I had? For me, reading it from a manual is not good enough. But if that's what serves you, if these are the pillars, these are the things that you want to believe in, go for it. For me, I had way too many questions. I needed to write my own book, you know? Yeah. But it's not, I don't think you have to do it. It is a wonderful, self-empowering way. But if you think that the stories that you're living through are okay for you, then love. Yeah. You know? Right. And like, that's what this work, I find is, it's like, the more you do it, the more compassion that you have for the human experience, because we are fantastic at making up scary shit. We're so good at it. We're so good. The same creative energy that builds amazing architecture is the same story that tells us if somebody did this to you, it means that they hate you. Yeah. Same. Yeah. The same creative force that we have as human beings can be used for beauty. It could be used for these horrible bullying thoughts that we have. If you're okay with your stories, if you're okay with your voice, man, keep going.
Yeah. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. And like the door's always open. You know, I think that's what I love about like the work that we're doing is like, we're not here with the intention of changing your life. Like that's up to the people in the space, you know, but we're creating a pathway and with gentle, loving guidance for wherever their edge is at. If they're a novice, if they're an expert. Yeah. That's like the door is open always for like more self-discovery and more self-love and more pleasure at the end of that. And pleasure for me is like, sometimes when I'm deep sobbing and I'm crying and I'm having a cathartic experience, that's also so pleasurable because it's like,
oh yes,
it's not holding me captive. It's like I'm just letting the energy flow through me, and I'm like, yeah, I'm fucking sad. Like, whoa, I'm so sad, and it feels so good to release that because how many years of my life was I just keeping that? Yeah, and just acting like it didn't exist or compartmentalizing it somewhere deep down in the crevices of my body.
Yeah. From that they told us that negative emotions are bad.
Yeah.
That's such a massive pillar. We hold individual pillars and then we hold societal pillars, and like crying is bad, being sad is bad, being angry is bad. Said who?
Right.
And why do I need to believe this?
And where do I fit in all
and
of that?
What? Yeah. Why?
So I just shouldn't express. Okay, thank you so much. Yeah,
right, boom, done. Good girls don't cry. Okay.
Yeah.
Big pillars, big stories, big glasses through which we're seeing everything. And I have this, like, one of my pet peeves is when people are in interviews or on TV or public speaking and they start crying and they make it seem like it's the worst thing in the world. I'm so sorry, I'm crying.
Yeah.
I hate when people do that. Or when people say, oh, I'm in love, I'm in trouble. I hate that saying.
Yeah. Like, what is that?
Why have we created this, like, such big disdain for the negative energies? And how can you willing to be wrong about this? How can I get pleasure from my sadness? I love getting sad now, and I do this like big growling, like feeling when I'm sad, when you're feeling that like elephant foot on your chest, like you can't breathe and the world is So heavy.
Yeah.
You know, how can I find joy in that? How can I, and I did this whole interview about like finding your turn on in your breakup. Like anything can be a beautiful experience. Anything can make you feel, because at the end of the day, this is like, it's you being a human being, and how amazing that we have this whole range of emotions. How brilliant is our creativity that we can make up all these things, that we can experience all these different sensations just from tiny little cues in somebody. It's fantastic to be this creative. How can we find the turn on in all of that? How can we really just celebrate our human experience? How can we really celebrate our brain's creativity and our brain's brilliance in creating efficiencies and patterns? And how can we like, oh wow, look at what this anger is doing to my body. I am 3 degrees warmer. Wow. Yeah. You know, just from a thought. How can we turn all these things around and just kind of like find the brilliance in being human, and that trickles down to better orgasms. You know, like everything, the more that you can accept everything that you are, if you want to bring it down to the sexual part, the more that you experience what you want, what you don't want, what you like, what you don't like, the more safety that you create in yourself, the more you're going to dive into pleasure and, your senses. If we want to bring it down to sexuality,
Yeah, and just the fullness of the experience. Like, I really see our bodies are these immense landscapes. You know, we have peaks and rivers and valleys, and there's so much pleasure. And just, even if I take pleasure out of it, it's like there's just so much sensation that's available to us to varying degrees. And so it's like there's such a service, I think, on the journey for women, like exploring sensuality and sexuality, of like really knowing their own body. Because I know for me, when I was in somatics and I was coming to my body, it changed my sex life to be able to know what I liked already, what I didn't like, the pressure that I liked, the types of like elements that I want to play with, you know, because it gave me permission to speak my desires with more clarity instead of like, I don't know, or worse, like projecting my desires onto my partner. It's like, well, you figure it out. You know, it's like if I'm not open and receptive to even that journey for myself, like how could I ever put that responsibility on somebody else? And just kind of hoping that we figure it out or hoping not. It's so much easier to be like, I love when you scratch my head like this, and I love when you're playing with my clit like that, and I love this pressure. It's like, great. I feel like men respond so well to that, you know, because they just want to please.
Everybody wants a manual. Everybody wants a manual on how to please their partners. Another one of the phrases, like, well, if I have to tell him, then I don't want it.
Yeah. Oh, that's so bad.
It breaks my heart. It breaks my heart. To another thing, vandalizing the term dominant and submissive. The dominant, a lot of people understand it as, okay, you decide what to do. You get control. You say whatever goes on. A deep misunderstanding of what power dynamics are in sexuality. A deep misunderstanding of, if I have to tell you what I want, then it means that you don't love me or care enough, or
you're not adequate
for me, or you're inadequate. That is
so hard.
Absolutely wrong.
And that's so hard on the other partner, because they're probably going through that experience anyways, and so like it's like a weird like negative confirmation. It's like I shouldn't have to tell you. And it's like, well, I just told some women when I was at the lake the other day, I was like, how is a guy gonna know that you want extra cheese on your lasagna when you want him to order for you if you've never said that before? But you just have this expectation. It's like, well, he should look at me and know that I'm like an extra cheesy kind of girl. You know? Like that. Like you have to give them some feedback.
Yes.
Otherwise, go on.
I don't like radishes in my salad.
Yeah. Like, you know, he's not gonna know that. She's not a radish queen. Okay, cool. Like, I won't do that. And it's just like this opportunity for a dialogue between the two.
Yeah.
Because I see the distortions, and I'm curious, like, your perspective of that, of dominance and submission, and how it shows up in like masculine and feminine. Because I do feel like there are these, especially with like the rising of polarity talk, that there still are these projections that are being cast towards each other. That's like, well, I just want to be fully surrendered in my feminine. And I'm like, I feel like there's so many people out there that don't actually understand the context of what that means. Or even recognizing that like you being the submissive, like you are actually the one in power there, not the actual you know, Dom, if we're talking in kinks, but I think this is like so reflective of just life and relationships in general.
Huge misunderstandings. Exactly. Where to begin with that? Being a submissive, I guess, you know, the masculine and feminine, knowing what I want, I think for me, it comes down to if I can't trust your no's, I can't trust your yeses. The idea of a sandbox. When you put a kid in a sandbox, there are rails, there's a beginning and end, the side to side, and you know within this space you can play. That's what a no and a yes does. That's what speaking your desires and giving the boundaries does. So can we both now, knowing that this is the space in which we're playing, then there's more juiciness and creation, more freedom, more surrender, more safety. And that's what your no's and your yeses create. A very clear, demarcated area, and within there you can go and be completely relaxed. If you haven't said, oh, I don't like this, I don't like your finger in my ear, if I don't then there's fear, there's no boundaries, there's no clear area in which we can play and explore, and then that's when the contraction, the overthinking, the mistakes, the errors, traumas happen. It's because we haven't clearly delineated what's the play area. And like that's what a healthy dominant submissive relationship creates, and that's why the submissive needs to be incredibly active in creating this sandbox. The submissive is the one that creates the wooden edges of the sandbox. So I like to phrase it more in that way. What does the submissive like to receive? At the end of the day, the submissive wants to go to another planet. You want to relinquish the need to do, to act, to decide. That happens before. In order for you to go to another planet, the edges of the sandbox need to be fully built and very clear. So in that sense, the submissive is the one in charge. So that the dominant, I see the dominant as the person that's holding the integrity of the walls. And within that, using the creative. For me, the most fun part of being a dominant is the creative aspect of it. Within these boundaries, what can I create? What can I build? How can I attune to this person in front of me and see, oh, this is the edge. Oh, let me push it this way. How can I be in service to this person so that they can further leave Earth? Right?
Because it's such a space of surrender. It's like when you have those edges and those boundaries, it's like, okay, this is the framework that we're working with today. That might be different tomorrow. I might need to change my boundaries somewhere in the process because I'm realizing, like, actually, that's a no. You know? So having that in that space to just, like, leave the mind and just be in rapture of the body and of the experience.
The integrity of the Dom to me is the most important part, and that's why I didn't feel comfortable being fully a Dom until I was willing to hold a mistake in myself. Meaning,
that's important.
If I didn't feel confident enough that if something that I was trying didn't go exactly as I planned, or my sub didn't like it, or it didn't do what I wanted it to do, I had to trust myself that it wouldn't crumble and I wouldn't break the whole scene and I wouldn't lose the integrity of me holding space for somebody else. If something went wrong and I made it about me and my fears, then I failed as a Dom. And I think like that's what's the integrity. The integrity of the Dom is, yes, you can make mistakes. Yes, you can fumble. Yes, you can say the wrong dirty word and you giggle about it. But the fundamentals of being a Dom, for me, is keeping the integrity of the space. You are in charge of those wooden blocks on the edges of the sandbox. That's it. You don't have to be the best at dirty play. You don't have to be the best at tying knots or the most experienced vlogger in the world. You have to be so aware of your role and have the integrity that if something goes wrong, I'm still here in service. I'm still here holding the space for us. I'm still here for you to relax no matter what happens. The technicalities of it are so easy and you can learn it and blah, blah. But to me, it's that. Can I be in service to you so that you can surrender? And then the sub's role is to make it clear as they can, what the sandbox is. And be able to receive. I think that's also a lot of
such a big piece.
Failed Dom-sub partnerships where the Dom is trying to give, the sub won't won't receive, refuses to let go, refuses to soften. Then it gets more awkward, 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 and then nothing works, right? I have a lot of women saying, well, I just want him to know what I want, right? And if I have to say it, I don't want it, and then this person gives them something that is good for them, and then they refuse to receive and soften into it. What are we doing here?
Yeah, like, that's such a lose-lose environment.
It's such a common pattern that we get into. The sub needs to be actively receiving, actively softening, actively giving feedback that we're doing a good job. I can surrender. I can give myself to this pleasure. And the dom is an active viewer, active holder, an active giver. That's the best way that I know how to describe that dynamic.
Yeah, I love that.
And the errors in it.
Yeah, of course. Just like the polarities of that, like the erotic energy that comes through that, and recognizing, I think, like in those more submissive spaces where, like, why am I not letting go? Again, it comes back to that inner work. That's like, if I really want this type of dynamic, and I think like even just like mainstream masculine and feminine is like a really diluted version of that. Where it's like, this is your role and this is my role and this is how we're supposed to be, and societal conditioning. And so it's like, oh, if I don't know what I want, it's so much more difficult to communicate those edges. And then even if I try and I'm still in there in uncertainty, where within myself am I not fully feeling safe to actually let go of this experience? If it's that person, what do I need to do with myself to increase my safety here? Do I need to ask some questions? Is there clarity? Is it actually that I'm feeling like this isn't the vibe that I thought it was? Okay, then I need to be sovereign enough to take myself out of this environment.
Exactly.
So that safety piece can be there, because otherwise, like those, like how you're talking, like the out of body, out of mind experiences are so epic. They're so fucking amazing. Like, I will chase the dragon for that, It's like, I love those experiences. And I recognize, like, when I sat and really examined what made that possible, it's like those boundaries. It's that full state of surrender that's like, I trust the person that's in front of me, that they're going to hold with integrity, that they're going to manage me in that process, because so many things could come up. I could be crying. I could be crying and orgasming. I could just be orgasming regular. I could be grunting like a primal animal, like the full spectrum of what comes alive in those spaces. I feel like is just so healing, and it's very vulnerable. Yeah, it's vulnerable and exposing, and there's so much emotional depth and intimacy that comes out of that. And I feel like that just isn't possible when we don't know ourselves and the signs and signals of our bodies well enough to be with them and actually hold them, let alone communicate them to somebody else, and trust in the other person's ability, or just trusting in the divine orchestration that even if that person responds negatively, that's amazing feedback for me, because that shows me where I'm supposed to be and where I'm not supposed to be.
Yes, trusting the body and our stories. This reminded me of something that you said earlier that I'd also deeply resonate with is, I am my biggest abuser. And a lot of the work was recognizing that I was the one that kept putting myself in these situations for the wrong reasons. Yeah. Over and over and over and over and over again. Even with the stupid stuff I did in my 20s, I can say very luckily that I didn't really feel in physical fear in any of them, which, beautiful, amazing gift. But it was me. It was me who made me numb. It was me who made me not trust my turn on. It was me who made me lose control, not want to lose control of anything. It was me who made me not know anything that I wanted in my body, anything that I liked, how I liked to be touched. Nothing. It was me that kept pulling myself away from that. And if I'm not willing to look into that, how can I possibly rely on a partner to give me pleasure and satisfy me? It's me. It's us. We have to do it. We have to find our own yeses, our own nos. We have to find our own biases. We have to find what we like for us. A partnership or a delightful, playful experience cannot possibly happen until we hold ourselves accountable for that.
Yeah. And I love, because it's inner work, and something that you mentioned earlier was around how, like, there's so many people, like, on the beginning of their journey, where do they really begin for this? And like what are some avenues of exploring this work? Because the thing that I love about even the workshops that we did for our Love Libido Fest, they all increased in intimacy in some way, and they were a safe space because we have the community here to offer that, and because we have facilitators to offer that. And so I'm curious, like, for the women who listen, like, what would be some things that you would recommend if they're like just at the beginning of their journey and they're like, okay, I wanna be a best friend with my body. I'm tired of being at war with my body. I want to understand my pleasure more. I want to explore my sexuality. Like, what would be some things that you would recommend?
Let's start from the bottom. If you're by yourself at home in an environment that is not conducive to any of this work, can you close your bedroom door and be by yourself? Just in that space, you can do so much. So I would start with like a simple version of the horse and rider that we've been talking about, which is an exercise from Mista. Close your eyes and create kind of like two identities within you. One is your body, one is your brain. One is your head. Head talking to your body. If your head was talking to your body, what would it say? And then turn it around. If your body was talking to your head, what would it say? Incredibly insightful conversations of where the hell you been?
Yeah.
Or whatever.
I'm tired of you. Yeah,
or like your brain saying, I'm so tired of thinking about you, of worrying about you, of like planning my day around like eating you. I'm so tired of figuring out what to eat, but I don't want to get fat. It's incredibly insightful to understand where you stand in the separation of the body and the head. That's one easy one. Mirror work. Again, all you need is a reflective surface. What does it feel like when you look at yourself in the eyes? Track your body. Is it disgust? Is it love? Is it softness? How can you keep showing up to the mirror and having a conversation maybe that's a little softer, that's a bit more loving? I think that a big part of it is doing the experience and feeling the emotions, but like, what are we making it mean? And how can we be here an observer of saying, oh, wow, I'm really being mean to myself, and what can I do about it? I think like the first part of this whole process is gathering the data.
Yeah.
Another thing that I love to do is emotional mapping. I sit by myself. I think about a story that made me scared. Where was I? Who was there? What were the smells? Like really, really try to get into it. Okay, notice what's happening in my body. Notice how I, hot, cold, hand when I fight, when I feel, Start gathering data about yourself. Start listening to the body. Start realizing how often your body is dysregulated, how often the adult has left the building, how often am I choosing from my fears, from these old stories, how often am I choosing from fear versus love. That alone can create such a big experience. And use your body, use the cues. Your body's incredibly smart, right? When I see somebody, I'm immediately like this. When I'm talking to somebody that I like, my head goes, oh, because I'm attuning and I think they're sweet, and I'm exposing my neck, which is, I love learning this, when you tilt your head over, you're showing your neck, which is your most sensitive part of your body. It means that you feel safe with this person, right? Like, how can I start creating this communion, let me use my body, let me collaborate with my body in how we show up in the world. Let my body inform me of my biases, of my stories, of these glasses, of these pillars that I've been using. Through that, I think you can already make a lot of change. You notice the pattern and then you change differently. If I'm going to make up a story about somebody, I'm going to make up a story maybe that serves me. Instead of somebody doing this means that they hate me, maybe this means they like me so much that they don't want me to spill my tea over the table. Nice.
Yeah.
Right? Through that. Noticing,
Reframes.
awareness, collaborating the body to give you cues on when you're in alert versus when you're more relaxed. And start choosing differently when these cues start coming up. That I would say you can do alone. And then working with coaches, of course. I am a somatic intimacy coach. I rely heavily on the body. Maybe therapy could be a good starting point for somebody else to understand a bit more if it's such a much big part of your story. For me, again, my my brain and my conversation was not very helpful. So that's another one. And then experiential groups like ISTA and retreats like you host, temples like I host. How can you go into a room where you're guided, supported, you're taken to an edge, you're allowing yourself to identify these patterns within a group and safe space to really like break through them. You know, you get a little bit challenged, you get a little bit to an edge, to then like really have the breakdown, to really say like, I am tired of being in this story. I am tired of living through this weight and this thing. I'm tired of not trusting. I'm tired of not being able to receive. And then move through it and break through it in a safe way. So I think there's something at all levels. You know, there's also great coaches that do online work. You do courses in that way too. One thing is experiencing it in your body. Another thing is gathering information and like understanding, using archetypes or the polarity work. There's different tools for everybody, and it's just like a matter of finding a tool that works for you at that moment. You know, there's plant medicine, there's all these kind of things. I see all these modalities as little medicine, little bottles in my medicine cabinet. Yeah. Today I need to scream. Today I need to get a massage. Today I need to get fucked. Today I need to meditate. Today I need to journal for 3 hours because there is so much going on. So it's that. It's like you knowing yourself enough to know, okay, this is what I need right now. This is what suits me right now. I am not ready to be in a room full of people that are having an exorcism. Okay, let me try mirror work with myself a little bit. Okay, I feel like I'm ready to invest a bit more and understand this a bit more, learn a few more structures and have feedback. Okay, now I'm going to work with a coach. Okay, now I'm going to do it in the group format. Okay, now I'm going to do a week-long experiential experience. I think there's something at every level for everybody to tap into.
Yeah, I love that. Amazing. Thank you so much for having this conversation with me. It was so good.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm excited for everybody to just hear this and, you know, like feel themselves somewhere in this experience. I know that for both of us, it's been such a journey to get to where we are now, and it's come with like blood, sweat, and tears in some way.
Literally.
And it's so beautiful because now it's like I feel like the thing that we both in our own respective ways maybe never thought was going to be possible, we're like living and breathing that now.
Fuck yeah.
And I wanted this to be like such a, hopefully like, you know, hour of inspiration for other women out there that are like, okay, I don't know where to start. Okay, great. She just gave me some amazing tips. Oh, maybe there is like a community that's doing cuddle parties or sensual work, you know, within 20 minutes drive. Like, go check it out, you know, and just see what resonates and where people want to meet themselves and how they can do this in a way that creates so much safety for them and also just like expands their body's capacity for pleasure, because like they deserve it.
Yes.
And it's amazing to be on this side, you know. So it is hard work, but I feel like we both really stand for the value that comes from that work.
100%. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much.